Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Curseof and welcome back to another video. Today we're here to do a tournament breakdown for the most recent tournament hosted over on my Discord. By the way, my Discord is always the top link in the description. But yeah, I went ahead and hosted a summer kickoff tournament over on my Discord. It had 38 players. It had over a $200 prize pool being $230, and yeah, it was pretty big. It was probably the biggest speed duel tournament ever hosted to date, and a lot of work went into this, and yeah, it was overall a great time. Along with that, this is a tournament that is going to be finishing up this current format, as moving forward we are going to have Yugioh involved, which is going to shift things a lot here. But anyway, I'm going to stop just, giving you guys a bit of backstory here to the tournament, and we're going to go ahead and hop into this little breakdown / discussion. So, as I just mentioned, this was a 38-player tournament, and we have some very, very prevalent decks with multiple players piloting them, and then we have some rogue-ish strategies, or just, like, table 500 strategies. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the breakdown for the tournament for you guys here right now. So as you can see, for the Summer Kickoff Tournament breakdown, we had 8 Gravekeeper Burn decks, 7 Dark Moth decks, 5 Conflict Warrior decks, 4 Warrior Moth decks, and 3 Burn decks as the less rogue strategies and more prevalent strategies in the meta. And then we have some less well-known strategies that are still okay and some that are not so okay. Those being 1 Dark Conflict, 1 Dragon Caller, 1 Gravekeeper Gaia, 1 Gravekeeper Moth, 1 Pure Gravekeeper, 1 Pure Warrior, 1 Relinquished. This Pure Warrior could also be a Warrior Control sort of deck. 1 Relinquished, 1 Ritual of Black Mastery, a Serpent Knight, a Spellproof, and a Viral Despair. So coming off of that, obviously, we see, like I said, a lot of rogue-ish strategies. The ones I consider rogue would be something like Dark Conflict, or the Warrior Control, or Twisted Warrior deck, and Relinquish. These are all still, like, pretty decent decks. They can compete. Oh, Spellproof as well. But yeah, they're decent decks. They can compete, but they do not see a huge turnout for these events, because they're not a top-tier strategy, but they do have some potential behind their names. But outside of these more roguish strategies, and the rest are probably like below rogue, we do have the 8 Gravekeeper Burn decks here. So Gravekeeper Burn is seeing the biggest representation for this tournament. 8 players piloting it. That is a very, very high count. And if we just include Burn as a whole, including the 3 regular Burn or just like generic Burn, we end up having 11 players piloting Burn. Burn has been really, really big in this format. It is probably the second best deck outside of any Moth variant. And yeah, it's not really that surprising to see Burn being as relevant as it is. Then moving away from Burn here, we do have 7 Dark Moth with the second most representation. Most of you guys are already aware that Dark Moth is the best deck in this format here, but we also see Warrior Moth kind of creeping in. Warrior Moth is still a very, very good deck as a whole. It doesn't have the consistency that Dark Moth has, but still has the power of the Cocoon plus Parasite combo, and is a lot more aggro, which can be more beneficial at times. But we do see 4 of that coming in here. Not many people, like I said before, piloting this deck, but it does go ahead and show its strength in this tournament, as you guys will see when I move on to the top cut. We see Conflict Warrior once again rolling up, another solid tier 2 strategy alongside Gravekeeper Burn. And like I mentioned before, we have the Burn strategy. Basically, any Burn deck that doesn't run Gravekeepers is just put under this little Burn category, this Burn heading here. And they're also decent decks as well. But anyway, now that I have told you guys what the whole tournament breakdown did look like, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys the top cut here. So the top cut for the Summer Kickoff Tournament was a top 8 representation here. 38 players, top 8 was definitely the way to go. If I got like 45, 50, it might be a top 16, but top 8 was definitely the correct number for this tournament. And for the top 8, which you guys will see come up on the screen now, you'll see a nice little pie chart here. Yeah, so for this top 8, we have 37.5% Dark Moth, or 3 Dark Moth decks chilling in the top 8. We then have 25% Warrior Moth. There was only 5 Warrior Moth decks in the entire tournament, and 2 of them actually made it, which is pretty crazy. That's 40% of those decks making the top cut here. And yeah, like I said, this deck was here to show you that it is still worth being around. And well, yeah, you know, we stick both of these numbers together here, and we have over half of the top cut represented by Moth alone. This really isn't a surprise to anyone, as any Moth variant is probably able to be tier 1 if played enough. But Warrior Moth and Dark Moth are definitely the 2 most relevant ones, and are definitely both a tier 1 contender. So seeing these decks is no surprise to anyone. After that, we do have Conflict Warrior coming out here as another 25% alongside the Warrior Moth. Conflict Warrior is a deck that no one really expected to take this meta by storm the way it did, and it becoming a tier 2 contender as a whole. Very, very shocking, and it's been consistently topping throughout this tournament. Obviously, it did get a top cut in my last one, and it is getting 2 top cuts in this one here, chilling at a nice 25%. And then finally, at the 12.5% section, we have none other than Gravekeeper Burn. So Gravekeeper Burn is obviously the most represented deck out of the entire format, and only seeing 1 player out of those whole 8 players actually make the top cut is pretty interesting, I must say. It does go to show that the Gravekeeper Burn deck does have a lot of weaknesses, regardless of its overall power. And the big thing with the Burn deck too is that it gives your opponent a chance to recover, because you do have to slowly burn them to death. Well, the other decks listed are a lot more aggro and can end the game a lot quicker. But regardless, 1 did make it into the top cut. It is still a meta deck, and yeah, we have a pretty cute top cut here going on. You know, not too bad, not too bad. So now that you guys have seen the overall tournament breakdown and the top cut breakdown, I'm going to start talking to you guys about the top cut lists here. So going off, first of all, we have our Gravekeeper Burn that did make the top 8 here. We have Art LeQuint, part of Team TSM, or Team Speed Millennium, I believe is what it stands for, and he was the pilot of the Gravekeeper Burn deck here. You're going to see a lot of standard stuff here, like the 1 Oracle, the triple Recruiter, and the triple Curse, and you will see the tech Gravekeeper Cannon Soldier that a lot of the decks play, but not all of them play. But it is a very, very good card, especially to avoid things like Lava Golem, but still have more presence, and help burn your opponent down a lot quicker. Yeah, so it is a very, very solid card, and it did obviously see play in the top 8 Gravekeeper Burn, so that should tell you something about that there. Going outside of that, we have the pretty standard traps for the deck here. We have triple Right, triple Zoma, and triple Nightmare Wheel. If you're playing Gravekeeper Burn, you're playing this. If you're not playing this trap lineup, you're probably doing something wrong. Not seeing Sphere Karibo, which is also another decent card to help counteract Moth here. But you know, regardless here, solid trap lineup and a very, very standard monster lineup with one little spice card there. And then we have the real spice of this deck, and I am curious how relevant this spice was. We did see this deck in the top 8 feature match here, and yeah, we didn't see too many of these cards here. We did see Kunai, I know that, and I think we might have seen Windstorm from him, but he's running Michazor here. Obviously, Michazor actually works really, really well in this deck, because if your opponent does run over something like a Recruiter, you get a Search, and you get Michazor's pop effect, which kind of turns Michazor into a 1-for-1, which is what you want it to be. Outside of that, we have Kunai with Chain and Windstorm, 2 old format staples, but don't see a lot of play in the current format, but they did come up in the top cut deck here, and obviously they did something for him, as he did make it this far. Nice 21 card deck, you know, to keep it consistent. We also don't see Wonderwand in this deck, which is very, very interesting. Most of these Gravekeeper Burn decks do run Wonderwand for the consistency, but Art LeQuint went against it. Very interesting to see, but obviously it paid off. Moving off to the side deck here, these are all the first. I mean, the Oracle here is pretty standard to run as the one of extra in the side deck here. Triple Dust, I mean, probably other burn matchups, probably helps against Moth. Windstorm as well to help avoid OTKs and stuff like that. And another kunai. I don't know if you need a second kunai, but obviously he felt it was useful. I can't comment much about this. I didn't really touch Gravekeeper Burn much myself, but this deck did show its power overall, and really nice to see a more unique Gravekeeper Burn build come out in the top cut here. And obviously, the extra deck is useless, and it is not the one that I mentioned in my video. It's close, but it's not, so like, fix that up. Moving on from the Gravekeeper Burn deck here, we're moving into one of the Conflict Warrior decks. We have Lucas Gaylord's Conflict Warrior deck here. He also got a feature match back in round 3 or 4, I think, in a mirror match versus Terramaster here. And yeah, this is the list that he did use. He did win his feature match here, but he did not make it past top 8. By the way, all these top 8 players did leave with $10 USD, so everyone in the top cut did get a little bit of prize money here. 2 copies of Hades obviously helps versus the Gravekeeper matchup, helps against Newdoria and Dekoichi versus Moth, so very, very solid there. Triple Gearfried, obviously good against Moth and just a huge beat stick. Triple Command Knight lock, and help things become bigger beat sticks, solid. And then double Charging Gaia, fairly standard monster lineup overall. Some people play 1 Hades, 1 Gap, he opted for 2. I think that's fine. Triple Offerings, obviously Offerings is huge. It's this deck's real only out to Moth outside of its skill effect. And yeah, definitely a 3 of staple in this deck. You cannot use this deck without 3 Offerings, or you probably shouldn't. Triple Dust Tornado, back row removal, gotta have it. Double Zoma, obviously it helps this deck go more aggro as well. It's also an answer to Moth if they can't pop it. And the Nightmare Wheel. We did see some builds run Windstorm earlier on. Nightmare Wheel, maybe that's the new standard now, but he opted for Nightmare Wheel. I guess I can't help get that little bit of extra damage in to potentially kill your opponent here. Going off into the side deck, Golden Ladybug for the burn matchup. Newdoria potentially as a Moth side, regardless, can just help deal with problematic things. 1 Skill Successor, 1 Wild Tornado, and 1 Blast. Blast obviously for the burn matchup, Wild Tornado probably also for the burn matchup. Skill Successor definitely be an interesting one. Not quite sure what it specifically does, but it's there. It probably helped them in some way, shape, or form. Might help against the mirror match, actually, now that I think about it. And then we have, obviously, the side-decked Twisted Personality, the only deck in the meta currently that seems to side a skill. And siding that skill is super, super relevant for this deck, as it truly, truly helps it take on the burn matchup here. Because if your opponent's every time your opponent gets a counter, you also get a counter, so you can keep up advantage there. But you're also a lot more aggro deck, so you should just be able to win outright, creating more advantage than your opponent. And you guys will be able to see that in the round 6 feature match if you do want to check that out. But yeah, fairly standard. Conflict Warrior deck. Great job to Lucas, though. Fantastic guy, by the way. Thank you so much for participating. And also not the standard extra deck. And he is the one that recommended it to me. And like, man, really let me down here. Now we move on to the top 8 Warrior Moth deck here. Obviously, 2 did make it into the top cut here. One of them only got top 8. This is Simon FR's deck. He has not participated in any of my previous tournaments, and I don't recognize him from the from the community as a whole. But he went 5-1, I believe, in Swiss, and came out with this Warrior Moth deck here. And you know, Warrior Moth, obviously a decently prevalent strategy in the previous format, and coming back for this format, still very, very powerful. Triple Parasite, double Moth, decently standard here. Triple Gearfried and triple Command Knight. I feel like all of these ratios kind of make sense a lot for this deck. We do see it running Offerings, and I think this is the only Moth deck I have seen maxing out on Offerings to the Doomed, which is very, very interesting to see, but very, very cool. Triple Dust Tornado, triple Zoma, and triple Wheel. These are the staple trap cards for the Moth deck, and really no surprise there. We see Blast Sphere potentially for the mirror match, and DD Crow obviously helps with Relinquished, and sniping out a Gravekeeper, Rite of Spirit target for Gravekeeper burn. Wild probably for the burn, Skill Successor, and ready, and Blast held by a Tribute here. Interesting to see him not siding Golden Ladybug. Most Moth decks do. And I'm very interested to know if that ever did bite him in the ass at any point. But regardless, fantastic job to him. He's also not running a standard extra deck. God, people! At least he's running... No, he's not even... You're not running a standard extra deck. And in real... If you were in like a real-life circumstance, you're not running a full foil extra deck. Pure disappointment. Next top 8 deck list. Next off, we have a very, very well-known player and a very, very fantastic player in the community here. We have a Tetra with his top 8 Dark Moth build. I'm just going to make a note right away. This is the closest thing to the standard extra deck we've seen so far. He should have that guy switched out for a 1000 Dragon. But the closest thing so far, so props to Tetra. Props to Tetra. But anyway here, we do have the standard Parasite Moth ratio. Going after that, we have double Gap, triple Decoichi, triple Newdoria. This is all very, very standard. The single Sphere Kuribo here, and opting for a Lava Golem. Extremely, extremely interesting. Seems like Lava Golem might be replacing one of those Nightmare Wheels, but main deck Lava Golem is something you do not see very often, so very interesting card there by Tetra. Double Allure Darkness, just, you know, makes the deck more consistent. I think the deck should run 3, in my opinion, but you do see a lot of decks running 2. Triple Dust, Triple Zoma, and Double Wheel, as I mentioned before. Now going on to the side deck here, I really like this side deck for the double Golden Ladybug for the burn, the double DD Crow for the burn, the Wild Tornado for the burn, and the Blast Tail Biotribute for the burn. It's like a full side deck that counters burn. That's crazy. I'd be really very interested to see what he sides out. Most likely that Lava Golem, I'd assume. And yeah, I'm not sure what else, but regardless, oh, probably Sphere Kuribo, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, basically a full side deck for the burn. Very, very cool, fantastic deck. And yeah, props to Tetra for making top 8. He's very, very consistent. He did go 5-1 and actually do the best out of all of the Swiss players. So you showed Tetra. Let's go ahead and move on to the top 4 lists here now. This is where we start getting into the cool stuff. Or at least one more cool stuff, because we have another Conflict Warrior. I said there was 2. One of them made it to the top 8. Top 4. Woohoo! We have Kid Machinate here. Kid Machinate, part of Justice's sort of team here, Judgment Duel Gaming. And yeah, we see a very, very standard Conflict Warrior deck from Kid Machinate. Basically the same thing as Lucas, but the switch-ups for the main deck is double Gap over double Hades. Obviously Kid Machinate prioritized the ability to switch to attack position and be a little bit more aggro. And then double Windstorm instead of double Nightmare Wheel, a more defensive approach. So they kind of like, I feel like it was a fair trade. You put a more aggro tribute monster over a more control-based tribute monster, and then a more aggro or burn heavy trap over a more defensive trap. So, you know. Going into the side deck here, we have double Sphere Kuribo, most likely for the Moth matchup. We have Golden Ladybug for burn. Amazoness Sage, probably also to help against burn here. If you guys don't know what Amazoness Sage does, basically if this card attacks and remains in the field after its attack, it can pop a spell or trap, which can be super relevant to pop things like Zoma, like Nightmare Wheel, stuff like that. So that's pretty good here. We have an Aerosol naturally for the burn matchup, and once again, the only deck that sides the skill. Kid Machinate, you're disappointing me though, that's not the standard extra deck. Sliding on past Kid Machinate's deck here, we go into another top 4 deck here. Another spicy deck, a little bit different. We have another Warrior Moth. I said there was 2. Here's a second one, top 4. Not bad at all. We have triple Parasite Paranoid, double Moth. Once again, standard. Just, you're always going to see this. We have triple Command Knight, double Gaia, so he's not opting for the Gearfried. And we have double Maneater Bug. We have not seen Maneater Bug in Moth in such a long time. And I'm so happy to see this card again. I still think it's a fantastic card, especially being able to recycle it with Cocoon. Super, super cute to see here once again. Obviously can be negated by Hades, but that's not that big of a deal. We have double Night Beam, which we don't see very often for a reason that Rook mentioned back in one of our feature matches. Night Beam can be chained to. They can't chain the card that it's targeting, but if you chain a different card, you can then chain that card to the other card. So you can play around Night Beam and then it just fizzles. So Night Beam's seeing not much play, but we did see a top 4 deck running it, so maybe it's still useful. Who knows? And then we have triple Zoma, triple Wheel, standard. And instead of triple dust, a double dust, I guess because he has Night Beam here. So not really worrying about a third one. Going on to the side deck, we have double Sphere Kuriboh, probably for a versus Moth. Gap, I think most Moth decks should run Gap, so having it in the side deck is nice. One Blast Sphere, one Golden Ladybug. Golden Ladybug is a standard for most Moth decks, and one Wild Tornado here, probably for the burn. And nobody's running my standard extra deck, man. I'm really running out of breath here. I've been like rambling, like just going off. We have 5 Dimension Tcg taking second place, a content creator with 410 subscribers, I think. Last time I checked, it was. I'm not even going to mention the ratios for the Moth. I mean, I just mentioned it, but double Gap, standard. Triple Nidoria, standard. Opting for a double Dekoichi and triple Sphere Kuriboh, so losing a little bit of consistency, but having more protection versus Moth, and potentially versus Conflict Warrior as well. Double Allure, like I said, you're giving up consistency there, but some people think triple Allure isn't necessary, and the standard trap lineup. We see a Visor Shock, is that what it's called? I can't really remember. I think it's Visor Shock in the side deck, which is kind of cute. We see a Gokapon, Danapon? Gokapon? I think it's Gokapon. Which is also cute. We see Golden Ladybug standard, burn, helping cards for the burn, basically the last 4 cards. And not the standard extra deck, but I think it's a Skull Knight. I can respect that. Oh my god! Freeze-Quee! You've been the #1 in all of my tournaments so far. Every tournament breakdown, we come to the first place deck list and we see Freeze-Quee. He's always chilling here. He's made 100, 150, 170 dollars off of my tournaments. Whoa, that's US, not Canadian. Someone give me a conversion. Editing. There's a conversion. This is what it's. I'm Canadian. This is what it would be for me. That's a lot of money. I wish I had that. I'm gonna ask him if I can have it back. I don't know why I organized this deck differently. No clue why I organized this one differently, but standard Moth package is whatever. Obviously, these are all running Cocoon. You guys can see Cocoon, though. It's really, really big on these. Double Gap. Standard Dekoichi. See, so you'll notice that Freeze-Quee didn't opt for triple Nidoria and instead opted for triple Dekoichi as a more less control, but more consistency. I think that's the correct approach because this deck, just getting consistently to your parasites and to your combo is really what you need. Then opting for triple Sphere Kuriboh over Nidoria, which I also feel is better to avoid your opponent OTKing you. Then we have triple Allure. Like I said, I feel like triple Allure is the right thing to do here, as once again, consistency is so huge in these Moth decks. Triple Dust, triple Wheel, triple Zoma, standard. But yeah, like I said, Freeze-Quee has won every single one of my tournaments, and in both of his last wins, you'll notice he did max out on triple Dekoichi, triple Allure for that consistency, and I think that is something to take note of here. Moving on to the side deck, we see the Possessed Dark Soul, obviously for, I guess, Relinquished. Maybe if you see a bizarre little Enchanted Fitting Room deck. But mostly for Relinquished. And then we see a lot of burn siding and a third Gap, which is kind of spicy. I wonder if that ever came up. And, I mean, he's running triple Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. I'll respect him anyway. He's first place in all my tournaments. I can't judge this man. Maybe this is the proper extra deck build. Maybe it is. But regardless, huge congrats to all those who did make the top 8 cut. And thank you to everyone who did partake in this tournament. This means a lot to me. Every single time that I do get such a huge turnout for these tournaments, it blows my mind and it makes me super, super happy. So thank you guys so much for joining these tournaments and helping me create content and give back to the community, because without the participants, they wouldn't happen. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe. I'm at 323 subscribers, and it's amazing. Honestly, I never thought I'd be here. I never thought I'd be doing this content like this, and it feels great. I'm enjoying it so much, and your guys' support means the absolute world to me, so please consider doing so. I'll also be streaming the top cut matches and any other matches that I think would be cool over on my Twitch, potentially today. You guys better hurry up and get over there. What are you doing? Yeah, get over there. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, that's going to be a wrap here. And I'll catch you guys all later on today for a tier list video with a little special guest. Anyway, that's a wrap, guys. Peace.